Welcome, football fans, to a Monday morning here at the Call Sheet Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Smith, and we are set for another exciting week of shows here on our humble show. Last week, I had the opportunity to get to talk to some excellent football coaches. Phil Eisenstein, coaching at the University of Pennsylvania now, guy who's coached in the NFL and at Division I college football. And then Phil Longo on Friday, the head football coach at Sam Houston State. Phil and I took a deep dive on the air raid offense. I love talking to guys who are passionate about their craft, who know whatever it might be, in this instance, football, but whatever it might be, who know it inside out, who can give you a perspective that is beyond what you have yourself. I mean, I've been playing and studying football for almost my entire life, 55 years. And you talk to a guy like Phil Longo and you find yourself taking notes furiously because you're just learning and learning and learning. So if you get a chance and you haven't heard those shows yet, go back and listen to some of those shows. Phil was great. Both Phils were great. And their passion for the game exudes and just sort of comes through the microphone, so to speak. But today we turn the page, and there's a story out that really kind of emerged over the weekend. And big picture, I've been meaning to get to this topic. I have a lot to say about it. I'm sure a lot of people have strong opinions on it. But the story that emerged over the weekend about University of Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava, who is now no longer with the Tennessee program because he essentially held out of spring ball practices in search of a better NIL deal. And that's the topic I've been meaning to get to, NIL. Because I've had various guests on throughout the couple of months I've been doing this show on a daily basis who are involved in major college football in some way, shape, or form, whether it's Phil Longo or whether it's Matt Lombardi, who's at UNC. He was on my show a couple weeks back, etc. Various guys who are engaged in this process. And for all of them, it is a hurdle that seems to be getting steeper to climb day in and day out in college football. NIL. And the Nico Iamaleava story is now, well, I'll quote Paul Feinbaum, who's hosted his college football program for decades. And he called it an inflection point. He said, we are at an inflection point in this sport that we have never been at before. Paul Feinbaum said, when I first started covering college football, your program could get sanctioned and have scholarships stripped away if you bought a kid a hamburger. And now, in Nico Iamaleava, we have basically college football's first ever holdout. He held out of spring practices because he wants a better NIL deal. And Tennessee refused to give it to him. And head coach Josh Heupel essentially said, I'm not having this. We're moving on. And they now have essentially cut ties with the quarterback. So if you're not real familiar with Nico Iamaleava, who are we talking about? We're talking about arguably one of the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in college football, a guy who, if you don't know the rule, you have to be at least 3 years removed from high school graduation to qualify for the NFL draft. Nico Iamaleava is a redshirt freshman, or he was this past year, which means he's 2 years removed. He has to play 1 more year of college football, which he will do this coming fall. And then it appears he will enter the NFL draft. And when he does, provided his career stays on the current course, he will likely be a top 10 and maybe even top 5 pick. The top quarterbacks in the upcoming, not the 2025, but 2026 NFL draft, which is said to be deep at the quarterback position. The top quarterbacks are, in no particular order, well, probably this order: Arch Manning at the top, and then a bunch of guys who are highly regarded. And that group includes Drew Aller out of Penn State. It includes Lenora Sellers out of South Carolina, Garrett Nussmeier out of LSU, and it includes Nico Iamaleava. And I would argue he has the potential to be the number 2 quarterback behind Arch Manning a year from now. He's 6'6" and 215 pounds. As a redshirt freshman at Tennessee this past year, he led the Volunteers to the national playoff. He completed 64% of his passes. He threw for over 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, has a cannon for an arm. He can run. He is a physical specimen. He is a prototypical modern quarterback. Big, strong, fast, versatile. You can plug him into just about any system you want. And here's where we get to the new reality. Under his current NIL deal, name, imaging, and licensing, which, if you've been asleep Rip Van Winkle style for the past couple of years and you're not sure what that is, amateur athletes, due to a Supreme Court ruling from 2021, are now allowed to get paid by their schools, by corporate entities, for their name, image, and licensing, which has allowed for some of these young athletes to make extreme sums of money, more money in some instances than they would make on their rookie deals in the NFL. And Nico Iamaleava's NIL deal with the University of Tennessee is paying him around $2.5 million. And he wants to renegotiate it. We're talking about a 20-year-old college kid who wants to renegotiate his NIL deal a la an NFL holdout. It is a brave new world. And to quote again Paul Feinbaum, it may be an inflection point. We've never had a high-profile player like this essentially hold out, refuse to participate in practices, albeit spring practices, but practices nonetheless, with his university unless they renegotiate his deal. And just like the NFL, you can look at his deal and say he deserves more. Anybody who's old enough to remember Terrell Owens doing sit-ups in his driveway of his mansion in suburban New Jersey when he played for the Eagles, holding out for a better deal. If you remember that media spectacle and all these reporters showed up at his house and he's out there in the sun in his driveway doing crunches on some kind of ab machine, telling everybody he's got to stay in shape. It was beautiful theater. But at the time, he was making $47 million on his contract, which is, over 7 years, which is about $7 million a year. He was arguably the best receiver in the NFL at the time. $7 million a year feels like pennies compared to what they're getting paid now, but it's all relative to the time period. This is the early 2000s. And Terrell Owens famously said, "This contract is an insult. I got a family to feed." And he got crushed for that, because everybody's like, if you can't feed your family on $7 million a year, that's a you problem. But what he was really saying was, I'm not getting fair market value because there's receivers out there getting paid more than me, whom I am better than or more productive than. I deserve to renegotiate my deal to get paid fair market value. And that is exactly what Nico Iamaleava is doing at Tennessee. Because when we look at the highest paid NIL earners in college football right now, here's a list. Arch Manning at Texas has got a $6.5 million NIL deal. Carson Beck, formerly of Georgia, transferring now to Miami, he's got $4.3 million NIL deal. Nico Iamaleava, far more productive so far than Carson Beck. Jeremiah Smith, the sensation out of Ohio State, who, if he was draft eligible and came out right now, would undeniably be the number one pick in the draft. $4 million a year. Previously mentioned Lenora Sellers, $3.7 million a year. Cade Klubnik, the quarterback out of Clemson. Isn't this interesting? Clemson. Dabo Swinney, who was adamant he would not engage in the transfer portal. He would not get involved in NIL stuff. It's adapt or survive. And I think Dabo Swinney has figured that out. His quarterback, Cade Klubnik, has a $3.3 million NIL deal. Drew Allers at Penn State is $3.2 million. And you have Nico Iamaleava, who is arguably as productive as Drew Aller, more productive than Cade Klubnik, more productive than Lenora Sellers. He's there at $2.5 million, and he's saying, I want more, and I'm not going to participate until you renegotiate. And Tennessee said, see you, buddy. So there's two perspectives on this. You have an old school perspective. A lot of guys my age who are like, the hell with this kid. The hell with this kid. You're on a full ride. Isn't that enough? You're getting your education paid for free. Stop. You're making $2.5 million on top of that. Shut up and play football. That's what a lot of people say. That's the reaction a lot of people have. That old school, this is absurd. This is ruining the integrity of the sport. This is ruining the sport. The transfer portal is killing the integrity of college football. How do you attach an allegiance to a program these days? How do you build a program when every year you got to go shopping for new players? I think that perspective is rooted in the notion of loyalty. You should have appreciation for what you're receiving, and you should be loyal to those who are giving it to you. And I understand that perspective. But there's also a very different perspective that has taken hold, particularly among younger people or people who really see where the game is headed. And that perspective is this. This is just capitalism. This is just capitalism. Nobody in the business world is saying, hey, I have the potential to earn more, but I'm not going to because that's not the way my father's business did it. My father started this business 30 years ago, and he did it like this. And even though all the rules have changed, and even though there's this potential for me to make more, and even though if I don't adapt to the new reality, I might get left behind and ruin my business, I'm still going to do it that old school way because that's how my father did it. Nobody operates in the business world like that. To say that Nico Iamaleava is looking at his current deal and then others who are getting more and shouldn't be asking for more because he should appreciate what he has, that's an antiquated philosophy. You can hate it. I get it. I'm very old school in many regards myself. You can hate it. But to deny the new reality and how that world operates is foolish. And if you want to speak about loyalty, well, shouldn't that be a two-way street? Shouldn't the coaches who recruit you there have a similar accountability when it comes to loyalty? I mean, think about Brian Kelly, who, when he got to Notre Dame, talked about this is my dream job. I'll never leave. Nobody could want anything more than this. And then in 2021, while his team was still waiting to find out whether or not it made the national playoff, the media revealed that Brian Kelly had already engineered a deal to leave Notre Dame and go to LSU and become their head coach. He didn't even tell his players. They found out via media. And then he sent them a text message and asked them to meet with him. The text message literally said, whoops, sorry, meaning sorry, I had to find out like this. And then he spoke to him for 2 minutes and he bolted. And why did he bolt? Because LSU offered him $95 million over 10 years. So much for that dream job at Notre Dame. He bolted because he saw greener pastures at LSU and he saw $95 million. So loyalty is a hard argument to make. And you now have these major programs flush with cash, willing to dole it out to players in order to build championship contenders. This past season, 2024 football season, the University of Texas spent $22.2 million in NIL money on players to try to build a championship team. They made it to the semifinal. The team they lost to in the semifinal and ultimately won the national championship, Ohio State, they spent $20.2 million. LSU was third, $20.1 million. Georgia was fourth at $18.3 million. Texas A&M fifth, $17.2 million. These schools are shelling out massive amounts of money. And there's a lot of young players that are saying to themselves, I should get mine. If you're Nico Iamaleava, you can't yet leave for the NFL. You are bound by all the rules that govern these things to stay for at least one more year. And what he's saying is, well, if I'm going to stay, I'm going to get paid. And I know a lot of people probably just heard that sentence and went, the dude's already getting $2.5 million. He is getting paid. What did you earn when you were 20? And I get it, but that's not reality. So what's the problem in all this? Other than people have a hard time stomaching these young kids hopping around all over the place, getting absurd amounts of money. The moment it's not going the way you want it, you just leave. Is that teaching them anything of value? Is that teaching them to persevere through adversity? A lot of criticism, and I get it. I think the bigger problem, the problem for me is not that Nico Iamaleava wants more money. It's who's directing this. You've kind of let the clowns in and the clown show, the hangers on. These quote unquote negotiations are being driven by his dad. And evidently they have a circle that's involved in all of this. And what have we learned throughout sports history about the circle, the inner circle? It's never good for the athlete. It's always got the interests of the people in the inner circle in mind. People see Nico Iamaleava as their meal ticket. And the more NIL money he gets, the more gets kicked back our way. It's what ruined pro boxing. Pro boxing, which when I was a kid was still a legitimate sport. One of the biggest events that you could ever possibly think of was a big fight. You know, first it was Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Marvin Hagler, Thomas Hearns, and then it was Mike Tyson, any fight he was involved in. But over time, the clown show crept in, the hangers on, the people trying to get theirs, and it destroyed the sport. And I think there is legitimate concern that this is the road down which we might be headed in college football, that if the clown show becomes the norm and the hangers on and the people trying to get theirs, then the sport is doomed. Phil Longo made an interesting point on Friday when I had him on the show. And his point was, you know, he's the head coach at Sam Houston State now. He's been the OC at places like Wisconsin and North Carolina and Ole Miss. And he said, one of the things about NIL that is good for football is it makes coaching staffs accountable, that you better know your stuff and have a plan and know how to teach and know how to integrate players, that you have to earn it. It's not good enough for you to just recruit the best talent and then not have a way to use it well. You don't have that loyalty from those young men anymore. You risk losing them if you can't integrate them properly. And now, of course, if you can't pay them. And I get that perspective. I respect that perspective. Accountability on the adults is always a good thing. But that's the problem right now with what we're seeing with the Nico Iamaleava story. The adults are not the ones acting most responsibly. The adults are using the young man to get theirs. And that is a huge problem, a huge problem. So this story will continue to unfold. I'm going to do another NIL episode where, I've been kicking around ideas. Who do I want to bring on? Who do I know can really explain this well? Who's engaged in it? And I haven't quite pinpointed that individual yet, but when I do, we will revisit this topic. It's not going away. It's not going away. All right. So that's our Monday show. Got a great week of shows leading up to next week when we go heavy on the NFL draft. My Whiteboard Wednesday segment will be coming up. There's so much to talk about right now, so stay tuned here at the Call Sheet Daily. Until tomorrow, then, enjoy your Monday, everybody. Take care. Have a great day.